It's alarmingly simple for individuals to obtain personal information online, including phone numbers, which may be publicly accessible or purchasable from websites like white pages. When receiving texts from unfamiliar numbers, it's often prudent to exercise caution, as they could be associated with scams or unwanted communication. Tina, a young woman from Los Angeles in her 20s, encountered such a scenario while using the online dating app Occupid. She matched with a man named Richard, 26 years old, described as having tall black hair and an average build. Tina found Richard visually appealing based on his profile, which featured 4 pictures depicting him in various settings, including with his dog, in his car, taking a selfie, and standing in front of a scenic waterfall. Living just a short distance from Tina, Richard and Tina engaged in conversation on the app, discussing their respective durations of residence in the city and places they visited. After exchanging numbers, Richard promptly proposed going on a date, as evident in the following text exchange. Richard, what are you up to tonight? Tina, taking care of my dog and then relaxing. I'm exhausted. Richard, okay, I was gonna ask if you wanted to go on a date or something. Tina declined the invitation for that evening, but agreed to meet the following day. They settled on a brewery called Stalking Horse, conveniently located between them. As Tina traveled to the bar via Uber, it seemed Richard might have been walking. He arrived before Tina and secured a spot at the bar. Text exchanges halted once Tina notified Richard of her arrival. Upon entering, their date commenced, lasting about an hour before Tina felt compelled to end it prematurely due to discomfort. From the outset, Tina sensed an unsettling vibe from Richard, noting his peculiar demeanor, gaze, and conversational style. She observed him laughing at inappropriate moments, posing uncomfortable questions, and making odd facial expressions, particularly with his eyes. Richard proposed walking her home instead of her using an Uber. Despite her inclination to avoid confrontation and her tendency to acquiesce to others' requests, Tina reluctantly agreed to his offer. The walk to Tina's apartment took about 20 minutes, during which she continued to sense the same unsettling energy from Richard. She responded to his attempts at conversation with brief answers. Upon reaching her apartment, Richard initiated a goodbye hug at her driveway before Tina went inside. Shortly after, she received a text from him expressing concern about her behavior during their walk. Tina reassured him that he hadn't done anything wrong, but admitted they hadn't connected on a deeper level, indicating she was seeking a more meaningful connection at this stage in her life. Tina politely expressed that she wished Richard well, but stated that she didn't feel a deeper connection after just one date, emphasizing that meaningful connections often take time to develop over multiple dates. Richard reacted angrily and aggressively, complaining about wasting money on her and insulting her dating habits. He escalated to making a threatening remark about knowing her address. Tina responded once more before blocking Richard's number. Tina hoped that blocking Richard's number would resolve the situation, but around 15 minutes later, there was aggressive pounding on her front door, accompanied by Richard's angry shouts. She chose not to respond, and instead hid in her bedroom until the banging ceased. Peering through the peephole, she spotted Richard lurking by the side of her door, out of direct view. Concerned for her safety, she contacted the police, who arrived while Richard was still present. Tina showed the officers the text messages and explained the situation, expressing that she felt threatened by Richard's behavior. After the police intervened and warned Richard to leave, Tina remained uneasy, knowing that Richard was aware of her address. The following night, feeling unsafe, she hesitated to leave her apartment. When she checked outside, she spotted Richard waiting on the stairs leading up to her apartment. Once again, she contacted the police, who arrived and issued another warning to Richard, urging him to leave the area. Despite Tina's pleas, the police declined to arrest or charge Richard, claiming he wasn't an immediate threat. Fearful for her safety, Tina arranged for friends to escort her whenever she left her apartment. Eventually, Richard stopped appearing near her residence. However, a week later, Tina received a text from an unknown number asking if she was home. Fearing further harassment and feeling unsupported by the authorities, Tina decided to move apartments to escape the situation. Marissa had an on and off relationship with her ex Dylan for about 3 years, admitting she lacked the strength to resist him despite the abusive nature of their relationship. Even after their final breakup, Dylan continued to contact her, ignoring her requests for him to stop. This escalated to the point where he showed up at her front door while her parents were present, leading to a confrontation with her father. Eventually, Marissa sought legal intervention and obtained a restraining order against Dylan due to his history of violence. Despite the restraining order against Dylan, Marissa continued to face challenges. Although she had blocked all known forms of contact from him, she remained vulnerable to alternative methods such as fake phone numbers and social media accounts. In June, approximately 2 months after obtaining the protection order, Marissa received a friend request on Instagram from an unfamiliar account named Kyle. Marissa accepted a follow request from a seemingly ordinary Instagram account named Kyle, though she didn't reciprocate by following back. In June, she shared a story about a date, tagging the guy she was with. Shortly after, both the guy she tagged and Marissa herself received alarming messages from the Kyle account, including death threats and insults. It became evident that this was a fake account, likely managed by Dylan, aimed at monitoring Marissa's activities. Marissa, after blocking the suspicious Instagram account and any potential new ones, believed the issue was resolved. However, a few weeks later, while she was alone at home doing homework on her laptop, she received a text from an unknown number containing a photo of herself taken from outside her kitchen window. This unnerved her, especially since she knew she was the only one home at the time, ruling out the possibility of a family member playing a prank. She observed the empty yard when she glanced outside, but the recent photo suggested otherwise. Closing the blinds, she promptly phoned her father. While still on the call, she spotted Dylan outside, trying to force open the backyard door. Marissa's father immediately dialed 911 as he hurried home. Meanwhile, Dylan persistently called out to Marissa, growing increasingly agitated, while she vehemently demanded he leave her alone. In a fit of rage, Dylan punched the glass, creating a hole that resulted in him screaming in pain and fury, blood flowing from his injured hand. Marissa witnessed this as police arrived at the scene. She swiftly presented the order of protection documents to the officers, and Dylan was promptly apprehended. Following legal proceedings, Dylan received a 3-year prison sentence for violating the order of protection and committing vandalism. This outcome provided Marissa and her family with a sense of relief and security. However, considering future implications, it may be advisable for them to relocate once Dylan is released to ensure their ongoing safety. Nicole, a 14-year-old residing in a New York City suburb with her parents, shared an unsettling experience involving a neighbor's older son named Gene, aged 18. Despite the significant age gap, Jane had attempted to initiate conversations with Nicole on multiple occasions. Their acquaintance stemmed from attending the same high school, where Gene, a senior, was older than Nicole, who was a freshman at the time. Gene's behavior became more noticeable as he would conveniently emerge from his house whenever Nicole was outside, often attempting to engage her in conversation. Despite Nicole's polite refusals, Gene persistently tried to obtain her phone number, suggesting a potential romantic interest. While Nicole initially perceived his behavior as slightly unusual but innocent, she began to feel uncomfortable as Jen became increasingly pushy. Nicole became increasingly uncomfortable with Jin's behavior, especially when he started waiting outside for her and invading her personal space. To avoid him, she began asking her mom to drive her to school, which deterred Gene from waiting for her. However, the situation took a disturbing turn one night when Nicole had a male friend over. As they sat in her upstairs bedroom, she received a text from an unfamiliar number, which turned out to be Jen. The text was unsettling, as it seemed to suggest he was watching her, prompting Nicole to ask how he obtained her number. Despite Nicole's denial, Jean claimed that she had given him her number before. When she confronted him about it, he deflected the question and instead asked about the person in her bed. This deeply invasive comment suggested that Jean had been watching her through the window, making Nicole feel even more uncomfortable. Looking out her window toward Jean's house, she couldn't discern if he was standing there due to the darkness of the room. Nicole decided to lower the blinds and show the text to her parents, concerned about Jean's behavior. Nicole's parents took action by speaking with Jean's parents, discovering that Jean reportedly has schizoid personality disorder. However, this diagnosis didn't excuse his disturbing behavior. Despite their conversation, Jean never admitted how he obtained Nicole's number. It could have been through a mutual acquaintance or a public record site like White Pages. Regardless of his diagnosis, Nicole felt uneasy around Jean and feared leaving the house. Her mom continued to drive her to school, and eventually, the family moved to another city. After that, Jean didn't bother Nicole anymore.